Okay, so I got this new keyboard. As you can see, it's a Stitch keyboard. It's low profile, which I would prefer the taller buttons, but it's a bit quieter, which is nice. The keys feel really smooth. They don't feel like they're sort of stuck or jammed, which is the problem I ran into with my other keyboard. And plus, with this being a Stitch keyboard, I can actually start using my Stitch stuffed animals. So that's pretty cool. They'll be with me. I also have this little thing, which it comes with its own backstory. Her name is Jackie, and let's see, what does she like to do? So, will you focus, please? Thank you. Jackie and her sister. Yeah, so she loves to go vintage shopping, which is pretty cool. I wouldn't mind doing that myself. Maybe getting a Windows 3.1 computer. But she likes hot pink fuzzy phones that light up when you call. I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool and I want it. Normally, when I have an idea for a story, it's the ending scene that comes to me first. And I end up working backwards from there. For instance, there's this one story I'm working on where I essentially think like a Hobbit, but smaller. And put this Hobbit, but smaller, in the movie 300. And see how she survives in that sort of society of warriors. And I decided that wasn't tough enough, so I decided to make it Winter 300. So, okay, I have my idea if she eventually, defeats the final boss. But I then have to work backwards to sort of make everything make sense. How did she get to the final boss? How was she even alive? How did she get into the Society of Warriors? How did she prove herself to the point where they didn't just exile her immediately? So it becomes kind of like a puzzle. I have to figure out how to make all the pieces fit together to get to the ending scene, which is really the point of the story. And I think that all comes from how I was trained as a writer. In my day job, I mainly do persuasive writing, which essentially means I have an argument and I need to convince my audience to accept my argument. While at the same time, there's somebody on the other side who's being paid to convince the audience that everything I just said is stupid and wrong. And in that sort of situation, I start with the ending. I have the argument I want to make, and I sort of work backwards from there. Okay, here are the reasons why you should accept my argument, and here are the facts that establish the reasons that you would accept my argument. So it's kind of like reverse engineering a logic puzzle, which I think works quite well for storytelling because it helps me make sure everything is cohesive, everything flows properly, and my house is making some sort of weird noise that may or may not be captured on camera, but let's just move on to the next scene. And I like to use that process when I'm writing stories. For instance, when I'm writing and editing, I like to pretend there's some jackass over my shoulder, basically pointing to everything that happens and saying, this doesn't make sense, or this wouldn't happen. So for every paragraph, I come up with, yes, this is what the character would do, or no, that's not what the character would do, but because of, something that happened earlier, that's why my protagonist is acting out of character. You saw me do that when we were writing sort of the basic backstory for Max. Other employees go out of their way to avoid the suits entirely. But Max doesn't do any of those things. He doesn't avoid conversations, and that's a problem because Max's personality, that would basically be what Max would be doing, so I now have to write in a reason for him not to do that. I wasn't really writing a story, I was writing a backstory. And my goal in writing a backstory is completely different. I'm not trying to make a point, I'm not trying to establish an argument, I'm not trying to teach you a lesson. I just want information on the page. Does it flow coherently? I don't really care yet. Does it make sense? Is there even a point to the story? Not really. But with the backstory, what I really want is, again, information. The point of it is, okay, when I'm writing the actual story involving these characters, now I have an understanding of who these characters are, how they would behave, where they came from, stuff like that. It's essentially kind of like a database of information. For instance, if the backstory is this character is shy, okay, well, now I know when he is in a situation, I should write him to behave as a shy person would behave. Or I need an excuse as to why he's all of a sudden taking initiative. Because the backstory is sort of in my back pocket, I don't have to care about the rules of writing. I don't need dialogue. I can throw in as many dialogue tags as I want if I do end up with dialogue. I don't have to show anything. I can write a Wikipedia article of a story, and that's perfectly fine. It serves the purpose of giving me information that I can use to determine how my characters would behave. And because of that, I don't outline when I'm writing a backstory. I essentially do what I call the stream of consciousness method, which is basically, I'm just going to write stuff. I don't care if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I can fix it later. And that's really useful for word count, because I don't have to stop and think. I can just type whatever comes to mind. And you notice in the prior video, we got like 1,200 words, and it was like 45 minutes of raw footage. So, you know, that's pretty good, especially if I'm just looking for information. I want it as fast as possible. But in this case, I would like to turn the backstory we wrote. I would like to take the backstory that we wrote and turn it into a story proper. And in order to do that, I sort of need to go back to my outlining method. But we're not really going to do that, because we have something already. We kind of know what point we're trying to make. We're actually not even trying to make a point. It's basically a prologue to a 30-year-old DOS golf game, so that when I play it, I'm a little less bored. And now that I say that out loud, there's really no point in any of this, but we're doing it anyway. I still don't care about dialogue and flow and anything like that. What I want to do is sort of, okay, what are the scenes that are going to be in the story? And we just go back to the stream of consciousness method. Once we have our scenes, we'll just write some synopses of the scenes. Again, writing conventions are not really important right now. That'll come when we're rewriting it. That has got to be my favorite login sound. Okay, as you've noticed, I've done a bit of rearranging. I moved the icons on the table so it kind of looks like they should be there. There are a couple of things I've realized about Word 97 since we were last here. First of all, I've switched to PowerPup as my office assistant. He has a really cool save animation. Let's see if I can get it to play here. Someone tosses him a bone, and it's right there. There we go. Yes, okay, so he's got two different save animations. The other thing is, look what happens when I do some Control F. Frickin' scans the ground. I love that. Okay. Anyway, and he lands. No more of that. One thing that does suck about Word 97 is, I had mentioned earlier that it would be nice to have two different Word documents on the taskbar. And I can do that nowadays, but let's see what happens if I create a new document. You see, it just opens within the Word space. So if I want two Word documents to appear side by side, I'm sort of limited to the space, like I can't put it on top of here. So we're going to have to sort of arrange them like this. And that's kind of annoying. Alright, so that aside, when I create scenes, what I like to do is try to figure out what exactly I need to establish within the story. And once I have a list of things we need to establish, then I can start writing a scene to establish each of the things. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create our list of things we need. Okay, so he's a loner and he has anxiety. So we're gonna need to establish that. Max has social anxiety and is awkward. Alright. So we need a scene to show that, and I'm gonna actually make that larger. There we go. Conversions. Okay, so the suits go around. Let's just go around judging people. So we need that to be established. The employees hate the suits. We need to establish that. We also need to establish the suits like Max. We also need to establish that the suits aren't really bad guys. The suits are trying to grow the company. That's why they went and did the like sort of golf tournament thingy and try to get a client to be impressed with Max's golf abilities. Speaking of which, we need to establish Max is good at golf. Or maybe not good, competent at golf. We also need to establish the suits love golf. The employees don't like talking to Max. That's another thing we want to establish, because we need to show that working here is kind of difficult. And it's kind of difficult just on the basis of Max's own weakness, which... What I'd like to establish there is that he has a hard time, but it's not really his fault. And I think that's a good way to give sympathy, is sort of he's struggling because of an inherent weakness that he really didn't ask for. The suits are trying to buy a company. I'll call him owner. We need to establish that owner loves golf. And then lastly, we need to establish golf will help the suits convince owner to sell, etc. We also need to establish that Max enjoys golf, otherwise he wouldn't do it. The fact that the employees don't like talking to Max is already pre-established. So it's not like they're discovering for the first time that they don't like talking to Max. So I think what we're going to do is add a new employee. A new employee tries to make conversation with Max, but because Max is so socially awkward, the conversation itself is awkward. Newbie talks to we'll call them employees about this, and employees tell Newbie that Max is weird, and it's best to just avoid him. While Max is trying to partake in the conversation, he is having all of these anxious thoughts about how to respond correctly, but the thoughts are so overwhelming that all he can do is blurt out a couple of awkward words. Newbie decides to walk away from the conversation because he doesn't know what's going on. Now, you're probably familiar with the rule of show, don't tell, and I'm going to be violating that rule a couple of times, but I'm going to do it intentionally. The first time I'm going to violate the rule is when the employees explain to Newbie that Max is weird. I mean, technically that's telling, but we already just showed that Max is weird, so we don't really need to worry about showing it again. Technically, we also don't need to worry about telling the reader that Max is weird, but the fact that the employees are telling Newbie all these mean things about Max shows that the employees are jerks, and I definitely want the employees to sort of be the secondary villain in this story. So we have that. And we've established the employees don't like talking to Max. So I think the way we show Max is good with computers is Max goes back to his cubicle and mutters to himself about how he wishes all people were like computers. And then he sort of explains that computers aren't jerks to him. Why is that wrong? I don't think that's wrong. Max has to do something complicated with the computer. So let's say as Max is working, he gets the computer throws a strange, vague error message at him. And then Max is able to figure out what the error message was. If you're familiar with Office Space, it's kind of like the scene where the printer flashes PC load letter as an error message, and he's like, what the heck does that mean? If you're curious, PC load letter means the printer's out of paper. So, we've established that Max is good with computers. Actually, you know what? Max is working, he tries to print something, and the printer flashes PC load letter error message, and deduces, or translates what that means. Translates that phrase into English. Okay, so the suits are coming to the office to evaluate how Newbie is doing. Employees and Newbie are hanging around the water cooler. Max, of course, is not there. Warn Newbie that the suits are coming. They explain to Newbie that the suits are basically here to judge people. They have no idea what employees actually do or how stuff gets done. The suits simply assume things could be done more efficiently. I've established that the suits go around judging people, allegedly. The employees hate the suits. That I've established. Here's another instance where I'm considering violating the rule of show, don't tell. I don't want to show the suits actually, doing all this judging and stuff, because I want to de-emphasize that. If I were to show the suits doing all this stuff, well, then the suits look like villains, and I don't want them to be the villain. So, instead of showing them do the villainous things, I'm just going to tell them, or tell the reader, that they do these villainous things. Because I've already established that the employees are jerks, I kind of want to imply that maybe the suits aren't as bad as the employees say they are. The suits arrive at the office. They ask one employee where Newbie is. That employee goes on some rant about how he is really good and could do Newbie's job and save the company money. The suits are annoyed at this answer because it's not an answer. They find another employee who immediately announces that he has to take a dump. Suit 1 says, hey, let's ask Max. Suit 2 asks who Max is. Suit 3 says something like, oh, here, let me show you. And he says something like, this guy is wild. I don't know about the word wild. I want to find a word that sort of means, that could mean, this guy's an idiot, or weird, or it could also mean something good. This guy is a riot. Look at that. That's the thing about stream of consciousness. I'm not going to worry about him using the wrong word. I'm just going to keep going and fix it later. In fact, I'm actually going to make that red so I know to fix it later. So the suits find Max. Max starts panicking internally and starts having more anxious thoughts. I'll put in the anxious thoughts later. Max also assumes that Newbie reported him to the higher-ups for being weird and that the suits are here to fire him. Suit 1 asks where Newbie is. Max immediately states 11:30 orientation. Room 4. I want Suit 2 to have an ambiguous reaction, like huh? Has a shocked look on his face and looks to Suit 3. Suit 3 says, what did we tell you? This Max guy is great. short, quick answers. Max is now having anxious but confused thoughts. So the problem with this is, how do I make it so that the suits already like Max, which I've established, but that Max doesn't realize this yet? Suit 1 says, we found out about him yesterday. So, but you have to look for him. So Max would normally try to hide from the suits, but yesterday he just wasn't able to hide. We found out about him a week ago. Suit 2 asks, when will he be back? Max is still having anxious thoughts about how he cannot escape. He can no longer escape from this conversation. So they haven't told Max that they like him yet. Alright, I want to go up here. I want to make sure there's a time gap, because I want the suits to explain why they like Max, but I don't want the reader to see that part of the conversation yet. I still want to build some sort of tension. Max blurts out, 1 o'clock. Suit 2 looks to Suit 3 and says, you were right. So I want the reader to think, uh-oh, something bad happens. Suit 1 then cracks a smile, looks to Suit 2, and says, I told you this guy was great. Nothing but short, quick answers. I can't... Quick answers. Suit 3 says, we'll be keeping our eye on you, pal. Buddy. Then the suits walk away. Max stands there staring and wondering what just happened, but his thoughts are more concerned with the fact that they called him Buddy. This further establishes that Max is awkward and that he doesn't have any friends, because if you don't have any friends, the fact that you're being called Buddy is probably strange to you. The next day, the suits are discussing with Boss. Actually, you know what? They don't need to discuss with Boss. How to acquire this new company from Japan owned by owner. You may have noticed that I'm using a lot of stupid placeholder names. I'm doing that intentionally. I'm gonna put in the names later. Right now, I just want to worry about writing stuff down. There are 2 other companies that they could purchase, but they decide on the owner's company because they feel this would offer more growth opportunities for the company, because the company does not have a presence in Japan. They don't really know anything about owner or Japan, so they decide to go find Max and see if he knows. They go to the suits are at the office and they are looking for Max. One of the employees tries to impress the suits, but they walk straight past him. Stands there confused. Employee 2 comes up and asks what that was all about. Employee 3 comes up and asks if this is a good thing that since they don't seem to be here to get anyone fired. Max nearly jumps out of his seat. He is both surprised and afraid. His thoughts are racing, but his body sits there motionless. Then sort of tension. This Suit 1 asks if Max knows anything about owner. Max says no. Suit 2 asks if he could find information on owner. Max says yes. Suit 3 says Great, let's see, show us what you can find. He scrolls through the results as the suits are watching over his shoulder. Two employees can see, but are too far away to really hear. Assume their suits are going to fire Max. Employee 1 is pleased. Employee 2 says they should get back to work before this. Look for someone else to fire. A bunch of photos of owner standing in a golf course holding some clubs. Suit 1 says he must like golf. Suit 2 asks where course is. What is wrong with this son? Wait. Are you serious? Max quickly finds a bunch of photos of owner standing in golf course. I'm gonna stick with a golf course. Max notices owner works for a Japanese company. He finds other pictures of owner near a mountain. Max guesses that would be Mount Fuji. So the golf course may be the one near Mount Fuji. Suit 3 asks if Max is sure. Max digs a little deeper, finds... Okay, how is he gonna... Does he know Japanese? That owner's company has an address that is near... I don't know where Mount Fuji is. I don't know what place Mount Fuji's next to, so... in city. I'm gonna have to figure out later what city is near Mount Fuji. I could figure out now. Well, actually... Hold on, I might be able to figure this out. Mount Fuji. Oh, it's a island? Alright, let's... Yamanashi in Shizuoka can... Wait, it's the island of Han Square. Let's paste it. Honshu. Honshu. Suit 1 says Max is a genius. Suit 2 says... Wait, we don't know anything about... Says... Alright, I'm actually completely changing the story right here. Initially, the suits took golf very seriously. I'm going to completely change that into... The suits take golf seriously. We don't know anything about golf. Suit 3 asks Max if he knows how to play golf. Max says yes. Max thinks about whether they mean if he knows the rules of golf or if he is good at golf. Suit 1 says, perfect. Let's bring Max along. Let's bring Max to meet owner so they can talk about golf or whatever. Suit 2 likes the idea. Suit 3 tells Max to bring his clubs in 2 weeks and meet them at the local golf course, which I'll give a stupid name later. The suits walk away. Max is both proud of himself and also freaking out. The suits walk away and they are happy. Employees are confused because Max is still sitting in his seat. So it doesn't look like Max was fired. Okay, so we've established that they take golf seriously, the suits do. We've established they're trying to grow the company. We've established that they're trying to buy owner's company. We've established that the owner loves golf. We've established that golf will help the suits to sell. So I think right now I just need to show that Max is competent at golf. So after work, Max races home and searches his entire apartment for that one golf video game he has. His thoughts are racing this whole time. What do you want? After work, Max races home and searches his entire apartment for that one golf video game he has. After work, Max races home and searches his entire apartment for that one golf video game he has. What do you mean number agreement? One game. One. Okay, what was this sentence supposed to say? He finds it and, still panicking, quickly throws it into the console. He's freaking out this whole time. He stays up all night playing the golf game to the point where he practically memorized the entire course. Max wakes up the next morning, almost speeds to a thrift store. He then heads to the driving range and spends, I don't know how much money you'd spend at a driving range if you're going to be there all day, but let's say $200, and stays there for several hours just hitting the ball over and over again while cycling through the few clubs he was able to find. At the end, his arms are killing him. Following Monday, the Suits are in their office talking to owner. They are excited potentially acquiring his company. Owner says he is too, but he sounds bored, and the Suits pick up on this. When the sale goes through, owner will have much more time to spend golfing near Mount Fuji. Owner immediately perks up. Suit 2 looks to Suit 3 and whispers, Max was right. Told you that kid was a genius. Suit 1 tells owner about Max and how good he is at golf, and that maybe they can watch Max play. Owner thinks this is a great idea. Owner explains that company was a big sponsor of various golf tournaments and events, and that he wants to make sure the new owners of company take golf as seriously as he does. Suit 1 asks if Max is good at golf. Suit 2 says none of them know how to play golf. Suit 3 suggests Max is their best chance. Okay, I've got another issue. If Max basically golfed for the first time 2 days ago, and for several hours, his arms are going to be dead for the next week. Not next Monday, not this coming Monday, but the next Monday. Okay, so that'll give him time to heal. Meanwhile, Max heads to the driving range every day after work to hit the ball. He took Monday off because his arms were still sore, but he spent that night, I don't know, watching tutorial videos on how to golf. He then spent his driving range sessions practicing proper swing mechanics. So this establishes that he's competent at golf. And then I can just say, he comments on how peaceful it is to work on a task and be able to do so by himself without other people judging him or forcing him into conversations. We've now established that he enjoys golf. So we basically have everything established that we need established, which is pretty cool. Max shows up with his 3 golf clubs. Employees stare at him and mutter about how weird Max is. Max does not care. I might want a scene of Max walking to his desk. Employees, what did they say they did? I want this to be like the same scene. They comment on the fact that he walks so weird and just stares. This is a stupid criticism, and I want it to be a stupid criticism because I want it to further show that employees are just jerks. Then the suits arrive. They ask Max if those are his clubs. He says yes. Suit says that won't do. Suit 3 says so they can buy him some proper clubs. Suit 1 explains that there is a business deal going down and that they need Max to play a good game of golf to impress. Suit 2 asks if Max is good at golf. He practiced every day at the driving range and can hit the ball. Now I need this number to be the max, like the distance that the Fuji golf guy is going to hit it. So I don't know that yet. I'm going to mark that number as red so I know to look it up later. This is great. This guy is dedicated. How quickly can you get good enough at golf? It took me a solid 2 to 3 months of work to go from hacker to averaging 1.5 strokes over par. The average score for recreational players is 91 in a par 72 course. I don't think this is realistic for him to be this good at golf this quickly, unless he already knows how to play golf. Max says, I can drive the ball. He thinks about how he goes to the range, but is panicking over whether that is good enough. He tells himself that he can hit the ball to near the pins on the range. Still, he is doubting himself because he never played at an actual golf course. But we have to be sure. Once they get to the store, I don't know anything about golf clubs, so I'm just going to say they buy him a full set of nice golf clubs. Suit 1 says, you'll need these. Max goes for his wallet. Suit 2 says, this is a business expense. You can consider it a gift. Now, for this, I'm just going to do a simple sort of montage thing. At first, he bogeys every hole. Suit 1 thinks this is a problem. Suit 2 says I couldn't do any better. I think if you bogey every hole, you're shooting a 90. It could take a month or years to break 90 in golf. It comes down to talents and hours of practice. Only 1% break 70 consistently. 70% of men and 21% of women break 90, according to the U.S. Golf Association. Okay, so that would put him in the top 5th. Well, he's been at the driving range for years, so he does have experience. I think I need to put that somewhere, that he's been doing this for years. Thinks about how he has gone to the driving range at least once a week for years. Now, I'm not showing him having gone to the range for a few years. Again, I'm trying to de-emphasize the value of driving range. I'm telling you because he needs to have some basis for being good at golf. But by not showing it to you, I'm kind of implying that it's not really that big of a deal, and which is what I want. I couldn't do any better. Suit 3 says only a quarter of golfers can consistently hit 90 or less on a full round of golf. The other thing is, I showed him the scene where he's like studying in detail all these different videos on how to play golf. And he is an intelligent person, so he can absorb that information. So it's less to do with natural skill and more to do with he's taking it so seriously. Suit 1 says this is a good start. His thoughts are still racing, but the thoughts are now positive. Suit 2 says they have 3 weeks before they head to Japan to close the deal. Suit 3 tells Max to meet them at this golf course every morning. Max asks about the work he is doing. Suit 1 tells him not to worry about it. Suit 2 says they can get his work reassigned. Suit 3 says, "We need you here, Max." Max thinks to himself about how great it is to feel needed. I'm not going to write scenes about him golfing. I think it's implicit that he's going to golf. 3 weeks later, they're on an airplane, flying to Japan. First class. Suit 3, sitting next to Max, asks if Max thinks he is ready. Max simply says yes. If you could shoot for par, we should have this sail in the bag. Max stares ahead. He is having the negative racing thoughts again. This time, however, he shuts down those thoughts and looks down at a scorecard dated the day before. He shot a 74, which is 2 over par. He then looks up. He is determined. The other thing I learned about scenes is you generally want to make it so that each scene is connected by either therefore or however. I watched a YouTube video of Trey Parker and Matt Stone explain this. This scene is basically Max is awkward. The next scene is the employees don't like him because he's awkward. So I think that's a good therefore. Max is awkward around people, therefore he prefers to deal with computers instead. So you see what we're doing here is the fact that he's awkward is what's drawing him into the liking the computers. It's not that he just happens to like computers, it's that there is an in-character reason that he prefers computers over people. Newbie asks if they should warn Max. Employee 1 says don't bother. Hopefully the suits get rid of him and replace him with someone who has a pulse. So employees are not... They're jerks, but they're not jerks for no reason. They have a reason that they hate Max. It's a stupid reason, and the fact that that's the reason is what makes employees the bad guys, but there is a reason. It's not like, oh, these are evil just for the sake of being evil. So the thing is, when the suits come back to ask Max about the owner, it's not because I need them to do that. It's Max's own actions, the quick responses he gives, that cause the suits to go to Max. It's Max who's driving the narrative forward, and I think that's a really important part when I want to write a story. I want the protagonist to be driving the plot forward. I don't want the plot to be shoving Max forward. I haven't established that he knows anything about Japanese geography, so there's a gap here. I need to establish that he has... okay, so here's where we're going to do this. Okay, Suit 1 notices Max's desktop wallpaper. Suit 1 asks what cartoon that is. I think it's called anime. How would you pronounce anime? Anime. I think it's called anime. Okay. Max says it's anime. It doesn't really matter what anime it is. Suit 3 says it looks like that show his kids watch. So he watches anime. That's all I need for him to know about Japan. We wrote a lot. I didn't realize how much we wrote. You know, I think we got a pretty good flow. Not a lot of things happen for no reason. Max is in the situation he's in because of the decisions he made. First of all, it's because of his awkward nature. That's actually what they like about the suit. So Max has managed to turn his weakness into a strength by just, you know, shifting the context. The other thing is this position he's in, he has earned it. First of all, he was decent at golf to begin with, and he put in the hours and he impressed the suits by taking initiative. And it's because he took the initiative that he's even on this flight. He put himself on this flight to Japan. So the question is, can we shoot a par in Fuji Golf? Because if we can, the story is complete. I think we finally have enough information that we can go from writing to rewriting to turn this basically exposition dump into a pretty cool short story.